I had always dreamed of a life filled with peace and harmony. I imagined myself surrounded by green meadows, a cup of tea in hand, enjoying the quiet moments, with a loved one by my side. The dream of tranquility was always with me. But the further I went, the more I felt those dreams slipping away into reality, as each day something inside me seemed to vanish. Instead of resting, I became part of an endless cycle of demands and expectations. Every morning, I woke up thinking that the new day would bring nothing good. My partner, Igor, was always nearby, but somehow distant. He didn't notice that I couldn't handle his constant requests, pressure, and expectations anymore. He wanted more, and I had less and less to give. Then came work, endless calls, tasks, emails. No one saw that I wasn't just tired anymore, I was like a dimming light. My life became a long sequence of tasks and responsibilities, without a single moment of respite. I couldn't even remember the last time I simply rested. I forgot what it was like to take care of myself. In Igor's eyes, I had become just a duty, the woman who always had to be on top, with no room for weakness. I began to feel my inner self fading into the background, making room for all these demanding expectations. I began to notice that with each passing day, Igor became more and more demanding. At first, it was subtle, a few extra requests, a few minor expectations. But then, like a snowball, these demands started to accumulate. He didn't see that I couldn't do any more. He kept saying, "Do this faster, finish that, do this over here, do that over there." And I kept doing it. I thought that if I didn't fulfill his requests, everything would fall apart, he would leave, and I'd be alone. He didn't see how I was losing myself. My eyes reflected exhaustion, but Igor didn't notice. He was in his world of ambitions, and he wanted me to be part of his perfect picture. He saw me as the woman who had to be flawless, always ready to support him, help, be there. But I could no longer hold up this image. I could feel how, day by day, my body was weakening, how I lacked the strength even for the simplest things. Work projects consumed me, and household chores became unbearable. I was losing control over my time and space. One day, I asked Igor to help me with something, and he waved me off, saying he had no time. I felt a cold lump of pain rise in my chest. And then one day, I walked up to him and said, "Igor, I can't do this anymore. I can't always be perfect. I'm tired." But instead of hearing me, he replied, "You're always like this, always with problems. I need more from you, Lena. You need to be strong." And I realized, I was no longer a person to him, just a mechanism. All I could do was fulfill his demands, ignoring my own wants and needs. And in that moment, I felt myself slipping away, dissolving in the endless stream of his expectations. I'll take a brief pause here and would love for you to leave a comment about where you're listening to my story from. Have you experienced something similar in your life? Share your thoughts. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. I continue. At some point, I realized I couldn't go on. My inner strength, the energy that had always been so full, seemed to have drained away. I could no longer keep up this image of the perfect woman that Igor expected me to be. My patience, which had kept me afloat, started to crack, and I felt my energy slipping away as time turned into an endless list of tasks and demands. That day, everything changed. I was walking in the park, trying to escape my responsibilities for a moment. I wasn't looking for anyone, but I accidentally ran into him. Sasha, the one person I didn't expect, yet he appeared at the exact right moment. He wasn't perfect, he didn't have that confident gleam in his eye like Igor did, but in his presence, I felt an odd sense of relief. He was simply there. He didn't give me advice, didn't speak much. He listened when I spoke and was silent when I just needed quiet. We started talking, and it wasn't like with Igor. He didn't ask me about my life, didn't probe into my feelings like Igor did. He just watched me, listened to me. I confessed that I couldn't keep being the woman everyone wanted me to be. I admitted that I didn't have the strength to be perfect anymore, I just needed time for myself. And he didn't judge me. There was no reproach in his eyes, only interest and understanding. Sasha wasn't rushing, wasn't pressing. He simply offered me a moment to forget about everything, to leave the tension behind and forget all the obligations. I felt my heart start to beat more calmly. He almost gave me permission to just be myself, not the woman everyone expected me to be. He didn't demand, he didn't pressure, he was just there, and there was something incredibly important in that. And at that moment, I realized that I could truly be myself. Without should, without must, without constantly being asked to do something. It was like a breath of fresh air, like a promise that things could still be different. While Igor remained absorbed in his own world and continued demanding more from me, I started to realize that my feelings toward him were changing. It didn't happen all at once, it was more like water slowly filling an empty cup, until one day I realized it was overflowing. I started to feel that my desires no longer matched his expectations. I could no longer be just the person everyone saw as perfect. My meetings with Sasha became more frequent, and with each one, I noticed not just relief, but also the first sparks of attraction. Sasha was different. He didn't expect anything from me except for me to be myself. He didn't demand I be perfect, he didn't keep me in his idealized image. In his eyes, I saw not just desire, but a genuine interest in who I really was. We laughed, talked about everything and nothing, about the kind of lightness I hadn't felt in a long time. And suddenly, I realized that this wasn't just relief. It was something more. Between us, the first sparks began to flicker, not as bright as flames, but still noticeable. I couldn't believe that at my age, in these circumstances, I was starting to feel attraction again. It was a kind of flutter that came from just a look, a joke, or a touch. Everything I had been seeking in Igor, everything I had been missing, was now in this new person. I started to look at my life with new eyes. Work projects and endless obligations didn't seem as important when I realized that my inner self was waking up. I understood that I needed to not only fulfill others' needs but also take care of myself. And it felt like a breath of fresh air. I didn't have to be the woman who constantly did things for others. I just wanted to be. And for the first time in a long while, I began to see how I wanted to live, rather than just exist. But it wasn't as easy as it seemed. This new view of the world was risky. I started to realize that change could be painful, that I could lose what I already had. Igor was still part of my life, but what could I tell him? Sorry, I found something that gives me the strength to be myself. I was trapped by my own fears. When Igor planned this evening for me, I didn't know how to react. He had always been someone who strived for perfection but never noticed that I had lost myself in trying to please him. But suddenly, everything changed. He invited me to dinner, which turned out to be more than just a dinner, it was an act of genuine attention. The place he chose was perfect. The atmosphere was romantic, candles, soft light, music that set the mood just right. Igor was attentive, caring, asking me how I felt, what I needed. He didn't rush, he didn't push perfection, he didn't demand anything. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like he truly saw me. He was sincere, and it made me think. My heart was torn by conflicting feelings. On one hand, I felt how my life with Sasha had become more vivid, how I was beginning to experience emotions I had long forgotten. He was the person I could be myself with, without pressure, without constant expectations. But on the other hand, I couldn't forget that Igor was the one I had built my future with, the one I had shared so much with, and even though it wasn't perfect, there was still something valuable in it. With every moment that Igor looked at me with sincere care, I felt his efforts slowly breaking down the walls I had built for so long. He wasn't perfect, but in that moment, he became the person I had been looking for, someone who could understand me, who might give me that balance I had been seeking. But with that came another thought: what if I ruin everything I've built? What if all this isn't just hardships, but a sign that we can be happy if we learn to be more attentive to each other? I didn't know what to do. Sasha had become something new to me, something that brought joy, but I also felt Igor deserved a chance. He wasn't a bad person, he was just different. But which one should I choose? In this moment of indecision, I began to lose myself again. This was the moment when I realized that everything that had once seemed impossible was now a reality, and I needed to decide which reality was my future. I stood at the threshold of my decision. On one side was Igor, my partner, the one I shared my life with, but who never noticed my exhaustion. On the other side, Sasha, the person who showed me that I could just be myself without trying to please others. But which choice was the right one? Could I leave Igor, the one I had shared so much with, for something undefined, new, yet so vivid and alive? Each day, as I tried to understand what I truly felt, my thoughts tangled. I saw how Sasha lit sparks within me, how he brought lightness into my life. But with Igor, I was part of the familiar story. With him, it was safe, though suffocating. I realized that I needed something more than just being someone's wife or partner. I understood that true strength lies not in pleasing others, but in learning to listen to myself. This wasn't just a struggle between two people, it was a struggle with myself, with what I wanted and what was allowed. I remembered all the times I told myself I had to be perfect. All those moments when I lost myself trying to be what others expected me to be. I couldn't keep living like that, feeling out of place. I couldn't sit in a cage, even if it was surrounded by comfort. My life couldn't just be a chain of fulfilled expectations. I wanted more. I wanted to be alive. And finally, I made the decision. It wasn't easy. It was like tearing away from something old, something that, while it didn't bring happiness, had become familiar. I chose to let go of Igor. I decided to leave the past behind and move toward a new life where my feelings and needs would come first. I knew there would be uncertainty ahead, pain, and unexplored roads, but I was ready to take the risk. Because I realized, if I didn't listen to myself, if I didn't choose my own life, then who would? At the end of this story, I left behind traces of unfinished decisions, unspoken words, and new paths that I was ready to explore. I didn't know where they would lead, but I knew one thing: I had to move forward, into my own life. Dear viewers, I would love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you experienced anything similar in your life? What do you think the characters feel in situations like this? Your comments are very important to me, and I appreciate each one of you. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up so you don't miss new exciting tales. I wish you a great day and look forward to hearing your thoughts. Leave a phrase in the comments so I know you listened until the end.